to the next class from class 9 elective geography. Today we will finish chapter 6 economic activities or occupation. So in the previous class we have talked about how economic activities are dependent on the resources that are available in that particular region and also depend upon the environment of that place. So today we will talk about the types of occupations and we will go in detail about those different types. So according to the activities that are performed, the types of occupation, they are divided into 4 types. They are primary, secondary, tertiary and quaternary. So all of these different types have their forms and characteristics according to the functions that are performed. So first we will come to the primary occupation. What is primary occupation? So as I have already explained in the previous class, occupation is an activity that somebody does to earn his or her livelihood. So primary occupation is the occupation where the people depend directly on the collection of the resources that are found in nature. So someone who is involved in primary occupation depends directly on the resources that are available in his or her area, and because he needs to collect those resources from nature itself, he or she need to live close to that place where those resources are available. So for example, a fisherman would prefer to live near a water source, a river or a lake, and sell the fish that he catches and provide for himself and his family. A coal miner will be located, will be living near the place where coal is available, the coal mines. And so these are examples of people who follow primary occupation. Secondly, we come to secondary occupation, and secondary occupation involves the use of manufacturing. So what they do under secondary occupation is the people that are involved in this occupation take the resources that are collected by the people under the primary occupation, and they manufacture it and make a final product to be used and also to be sold. For example, let's take bamboo. Bamboo is a natural resource. Someone who cuts the bamboo and sells it in the market is involved in primary occupation. But then, in bulk, bamboo can also be used, can be processed in a factory and used to make paper. So here, this is an example of secondary occupation. It involves manufacturing. So secondary occupation is dependent on primary occupation for their for the activities that are done under this secondary occupation. So it becomes more valuable. The resources that are collected from nature undergo a process of manufacturing and provide those products which are of greater value. And also they are also located close to the area where these resources are available, so that the expenditure is less, and also for transportation purpose and for convenience, it is better for this people involved in this occupation to be located near the areas where the resources are available. An example of secondary occupation can also be potato chips. Potatoes are grown by the farmers, and we buy potatoes, we eat it in different ways. Again, the same potatoes can be supplied to a potato chip factory to manufacture potato chips. So this is an example of secondary occupation. People who are involved in that process or in that occupation is called secondary occupation. Also, they are located close to the market. And of course, nowadays, though, with the expansion of trade and communication, with the improvement in services that are available, it is easier than it was in the earlier times. So this is what is known as secondary occupation. So, and another thing to note when we are talking about secondary occupation is that it involves skilled workers, low labor costs, low energy costs, and access to transportation, because the products have to be transported to those places where they will be marketed. So this is about secondary occupation. Next, we come to the third type of occupation, that is known as tertiary occupation. What is tertiary occupation? Tertiary occupation is that type of occupation that provides services. What are services? Lawyers, doctors, salespersons, policemen. These are all services that are provided, and they are also located in those places where their services are required. For example, we cannot have a hospital in the middle of the desert because there are no people in the desert. So it will not be available in the middle of the desert. So where those services are required, such type of occupations also come up. So as we have taken the example of lawyers, doctors, salesperson, police, etc. Primary, secondary, and tertiary occupations are the three main occupations. Another thing that I would like to bring to your notice is that in primary occupation, one of the most important that comes under primary occupation is that of agriculture, or the farmer, because it is the farmer who provides food for us, and food is the basic need of our life, and everything actually is dependent on this primary occupation of being a farmer or doing agriculture. So these three, primary, secondary, and tertiary, are the three main occupations, but we are not done yet. We still have one more, that is quaternary occupation. What is quaternary occupation? Quaternary occupation is that type of occupation which involves activities like researching, so a researcher. We as teachers also come under quaternary occupation. Journalists also come under quaternary occupation. What do these activities require? Being a teacher, being a journalist, being a researcher, it requires processing and sharing of information. So this is a type of occupation known as quaternary occupation. And quaternary occupation is not dependent on a particular area or place. For example, right now, I am not able to see you, my dear students, because of the pandemic, but you can still benefit because of the use of technology. And it is also not just limited to you, but to many more. So taking online classes right now, this is also an example of quaternary occupation. And we can get all kinds of resources through the internet. Why? Because people have done their research and people have put up their material, and we are able to get access to it from any corner of the world. So this type of occupation which involves accessing and providing information come under the category of quaternary occupation. And there's another type of occupation which has not been mentioned in our book, hence I have not put it here, but it is called Quinary occupation. Quinary occupation is that type of occupation which involves people who make decisions. For example, in our country of India, a prime minister, for example, okay, he is under that category of occupation known as quinary occupation, because he is involved in making decisions for our country. The CEO of a company, he also comes under the category of quinary occupation. They have the power to make decisions for all these sectors, these different types of occupations that we have already discussed, whether it is primary, secondary, tertiary, or quaternary. So in a way we can see that all of these occupations they have their own characteristics, but they are not separate from each other. They are all interlinked with each other. They're all dependent on each other. Okay, and so these are the different types of occupation. Another important point to note is with reference to our country, that is India. In India, 65% of our population are dependent on primary occupation because we are very highly dependent on agriculture, and farmers form a large part of our workforce, and we must keep that in mind. As opposed to that, a developed country like USA has only 5% of its population involved in primary occupation. So we have gone in brief through these different types of occupation. Now we will just go again through the topic as I have mentioned here, economic development and occupational change. Change occurs in every area of our life, in terms of occupation also. So we have seen that with time and place, the economic system of a country or of a region changes. As the change comes, the occupation also changes. For example, as I had told you earlier, in Assam, in our state of Assam, tea was grown in a very small scale. People did it for their own consumption. After the British came, though, tea has become a major industry. And so it has helped, the commercialization of tea production has helped India to attain that status of being the largest producer of tea in the world. Likewise, even coal and petroleum in the state of Assam, in our state. Initially, we had the same resources, but it was not developed to that extent. But with the advent of the British, coal and petroleum production also have increased, and it is contributing to the growth of our economy. So we can see that with time and the change, with the passage of time and the changes in the situation, the kind of occupation that is followed in a place also changes. So people who are involved in primary occupation, once a secondary occupation, facilities for secondary occupation is set up, will have an opportunity to change their occupation. Okay? Because it may be more profitable economically for them to change their occupation and go and work in the factories. So this is how economical development leads to occupational change. Now there are two factors that I would just like to point out. Two factors that may be responsible, and it is available on page 98 of your textbook. Let me read it out. Two factors are responsible for the transfer of some people from primary to secondary occupation. It may be that already there are more workers in the primary occupation like agriculture than is required. And of course, in the context of our country, it is true. We have more farmers than we need. So hence, people leave their villages, they leave farming, and they go and work in the cities to get employment in those different industries and factories. Number two, there may be more income in the secondary sector than in the primary sector. So we know that the cost of living is rising, and being a farmer is not as profitable as getting a job in the secondary sector. Hence, people change their occupation or change their jobs from primary to the secondary occupation. Moreover, industrialization also opens up ways for trade and commerce, and so some people may get involved in the tertiary sector also. So we can see that economic development causes changes in the human occupation. In the post-independence period, after India became independent, more and more people are now engaged in administrative and in the transport services. So we can see that the tertiary sector has gained importance in not only in our state but in the whole country. And now with the spread of banking, finance, financial and research institutions, information technology, and now the media event, number of workers in the quaternary sector has also increased. So what is the summary of all this that we have studied? The social and economic changes in course of time have brought about significant changes in the economic activities throughout not only our state but throughout the world. And this is how economic development leads to occupational change, and which again brings about a change in the world. So we have come to the end of this chapter on economic activities or occupation. I hope you have understood this brief explanation. I would like you, as I have told you earlier, to go through the textbook yourself. It is on page 94, from page 94 to 99. I will be uploading questions on the app, which again, as I have told you earlier, I would like you to prepare your own answers on and keep it ready when school reopens for submission and for checking. Thank you.
Stay home, stay safe.
Do it for self.
Do it for your family. Do it for India.
Let's break the chain of COVID-19.
हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद। हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद।
हम होंगे कामयाब, जय हिंद।